Cults, true crime, paranormal investigations, hidden wisdom. Separately, these topics make for a few good episodes on your favorite podcast, but together, they make for one hell of a movie. From the Shadows is just that. When Dr. Joseph Cawl and members of his Hidden Wisdom cult die in a mysterious fire, survivors contact a paranormal expert to find the truth. What they discover makes them the next target of a deranged killer. I sat down with writer-producer Mike Kuciak, who you may know as the writer-director of Death Metal, to get the down low on his latest film.
The story goes, I was trying to get another movie made called Knife in 2019, and we had a lot of traction, and COVID came along, and we kept still trying to push and push and push. Give it another 2 weeks, we'll blow over, And finally, it was going on long enough that financing said, let's just wait for this to turn, and we'll reconvene when it's all said and done. And we got so close to that I had the taste of that movie in my mouth. I'm just like, what can we make now? And I saw a movie called Host, which is very much a COVID movie. And they're in a house and they're separated and they, and I thought very directly, I'll write one of those. And obviously I couldn't do, they do a seance. So it's like, all right, well, it can't be demons because that's Host. It can't be ghosts because that's Unfriended. So what can we do? And I thought, what if there's a slasher version of this to be had? And it's like, all right, well, what does that look like? And it's like, all right, well, a dude is popping up behind them and stabbing teenagers. And all right, well, why don't they just get up and leave? Why are, X, Y, Z? And then just from asking those questions, you start developing the mythology backwards from there. So then you start going, all right, well, what if it's not just a dude in a mask? What if he's a magic slasher like Freddy Krueger or Candyman? He's got some powers going on, and that's how he can kind of pop up behind people and attack them, almost at random. All right, well, why don't they leave? Oh, well, maybe there's a thing that they have to do in order to make him go away. If they don't do that, then they're all going to die. So it's either some people die or everyone's going to die. And it's like, all right, well, maybe it's like a cult.
Immediately, I was entranced at the idea of a cult. What crazy activities were they doing? How did everyone die at the beginning? What is the actual truth of what's going on? Mike explains the idea as a mix between necessity and new twists on a familiar story.
So it's like, yeah, okay, well, they were in a cult, all right, and they survived, but now someone from the cult, maybe the cult leader or someone else, is after them. And that's who it is. All right, well, where does he get his magical powers? Oh, well, maybe they were a cult that were trying to do some psychic thing, and they thought that they had stumbled across some power, and this guy actually has mastered it. And you see what I mean? So it's like the writing of the script was worked backward from first the need. Let's make a movie that we can make right now during COVID. And then it's like, all right, well, let's go backward and backward and backward and backward and backward. And then, in the course of that, I developed a lot of the mythology with our director, Mike Sargent.
As writer-producer, Mike honed in on what it was like filming both in the midst of COVID and after.
So we were able to shoot at Fairleigh Dickinson during COVID, and then even as we were shooting in late 21, early 22, it started to loosen up a little bit, enough so that then we started feeling like let's open this up a little bit more, because the other Zoom movies are all 100% this lockdown, people starting to screen. Can we kind of start incorporating more found footagey kind of elements where a camera gets up and rolls around? Can we loosen it up, have her run around the space a little bit, can switch into traditional cinematic beats, like when Leonard shows up at the very end. stuff like that. So it's kind of it began life as basically a host type scenario, and then as production gave us opportunities, we kind of took those opportunities.
Opportunity is the key word here. And it's not just the opportunity to film more broadly, but the opportunity to have fun with it, especially in the gore and special effects department.
Another question on effects and gore. So
Yeah.
not everyone likes gore. I don't mind it. If it's done really well, then I really like it.
Mhm.
One of my favorite scenes is when Denise dies
Right. Yeah.
and she lifts her neck and there's just a slit and that starts talking. The slit is
Right.
talking. I had never seen that before. That's really awesome. So tell me all about the gore, the effects, how you guys did that, and how you came up with these ideas.
For me, and again, it's I watch like a million horror movies, so and if you sit down to write one, you go, okay, what can we show the audience that they haven't seen a million times? Because there's 100, I no one's afraid of like getting bitten by an animal or a monster because it's so abstract. Or being pummeled by, knives or axes. I mean, it's fine, but what can you do in such a way that is new enough that the audience will react to it? And I also want to establish that there was like kind of a supernatural element at play, and make that like really carve that out for Amara and her assistant in such a way that it's like, oh shit, we're dealing with something bigger. And even when I was writing the scene, I even put in like bold parentheses. I'm like, I don't know if we can do this or not. And if we can't, we can just kind of have Joseph's voice come out of her mouth. But wouldn't it be cool if it was something like this? And so it's like, that's how like she lifts her head and like her throat has been slit, and the throat slit becomes like kind of a mouth, and it's speaking with Joseph's voice. For one thing, we haven't seen that a million times, and for another, it's a cool. And so we went to Vincent Guastini, and he also mentioned on multiple occasions that was his favorite gag. That was the one, that was kind of the hook for him to get involved in the project, because that's the thing where you're just like, how would you do that? And he's like, what if it's a puppet? So it's he obviously is the FX guy. He would be able to answer these questions in detail. I'm just quote unquote the writer producer of this film. But yeah, he did the mouth gag with a puppet.
But the effects team wasn't the only awesome part of From the Shadows. The casting deserves praise as well.
So I have a question about casting.
Yeah.
I think that all of the actors and actresses did a fantastic job.
I agree with that. Yeah, they're great.
Yes, they are great. I truly felt that all of them were their characters, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
But it always surprises me when lesser known filmmakers have these really, really famous people, and that's a good surprise. So I'm wondering, how did you land Keith David and Bruce Davison? How did you do that?
Well, one of our producers was on friendly terms with Keith's manager, and was able to get the script to him. Keith connected with it, but he wanted to. He held off on attaching himself until we had someone else, because it's very clearly, a two-hander between the cult leader and
Right.
Leonard Bertram. So he didn't basically, he was hesitant to come onto the project until he knew who the other person was going to be, who he was going to be jousting with, and one of our executive producers, Sarah Gorski, was on friendly terms with Chris Rowe, who represents a lot of the 80s horror people. And at first we thought of Malcolm McDowell, but he was unavailable. And he suggested Bruce Davison. So we got him the script. Bruce connected with the material. Got Bruce, led to Keith, and now we had our two, kind of heavyweights. And then we had an amazing stroke of luck in getting Selena Anduze to be our lead, and she of course killed it. And the younger cult people, the quote unquote the kids, for lack of a better term, are students of Fairleigh Dickinson, and all of them were fantastic. They brought it. I thought that they realistically understood that they had a wonderful opportunity to kind of like walk out of school with already a feature on their IMDb. So they rolled up to the challenge and brought it. Everyone was fantastic.
So what happens when you get a great cast together and throw in some killer effects with a story to match? You send it out to view, of course. Mike tells us about From the Shadows' current showing circuit.
Yeah, From the Shadows, we got into some festivals, and we didn't get into as many as with death metal because we started late. There was a period of time during which our sales agent distributor they were hesitant to let us put into festivals because what happened, to their mind, it was like, what happens is if it gets into festivals, now it gets pirated and now it's all over the place. So it's like it becomes harder to make a good deal if it's already like out there in pirate land, right? And we got into several, including Port of Fear in Kenosha. I went out there with Sarah Gorski, our EP. Sarah herself went to one in Missouri, and we actually just had one, the LA Horror Film Festival, like a few weeks ago. And in terms of theatrical, our distributors were actually getting us into a select theatrical run. We were in 5 theaters for a week, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but by and
more
large,
than zero and more than a lot of filmmakers get. So
that's
still something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, for one thing, we're not talking about a Marvel movie, right? 99.9% of the lower budgeted horror movies that come out go directly to streaming, and that's fine because that's where it can connect with the audience. But very few of them actually still make it into a theater. So it was with a deep level of pleasure that I could look at a marquee that included. It was funny because like at the marquee, it's like Barbie. And all the way down at the bottom of the marquee, From the Shadows.
Do you guys have any plans to? I know you sent me the link on Vimeo. Are you guys going to have like a physical copy? Do you, or are there plans for one?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't think that we've even discussed like a physical Blu-ray. We had an exclusive with Vudu for about a month, for 30 days. And we got that exclusive with Vudu because we had the theatrical. When they can say day and date, this movie is also in theaters, you get a special kiss on the cheek from the Vudus of the world. And so yeah, with Shadows, we've been our conversation has been almost exclusively electronic media. If we do have a Blu-ray at some point in time, it'll probably be like, the special collector's edition with all the bells and whistles and, commentary by Mike Sargent and,
Now, I mentioned before that Mike also wrote and directed death metal. Clearly, horror has a special place in his heart, and he makes sure to share that love through filmmaking. We spoke briefly comparing blockbuster horror to smaller productions, both agreeing that the smaller ones, like From the Shadows and death metal, just have more soul to them, something special, made for fans, by fans, right?
One of the wonderful things of the many wonderful things about the internet and digital filmmaking as a whole is it has democratized the process. The means of production are within reach. If you have a smartphone in your pocket, you can shoot a movie. You can write a movie on your phone, shoot it on your phone, and if you have an internet connection, you can edit it on your phone. And then if you have an internet connection, you can put it up on the internet with your phone. It's one device that handles all of these things. And even in a weird kind of a way, we've kind of gone full circle all the way back around to the drive-in movies. Idea of just like, let's knock out inexpensive movies that are fun to watch. And death metal in particular, like I said, Shadows is drawn more from Carpenter. Death metal is more the OG Evil Dead by way of Italian filmmaking. So it's like we're talking about really scrappy, low budget, gonzo drive-in filmmaking kind of midnight movie is the idea behind that one. So it's like, weirdly enough, we've come full circle enough, kind of embraced it, especially for that project. But it's wonderful that we have this opportunity. It's like for a long time, if you wanted to make even quote unquote an independent horror movie, you're still shooting on 16 millimeter. You're still like running those dollars through the camera every time you hit action. And now we're at a place where like, dude, you can make a film for like nothing. You can make a
Yeah.
$5,000, $10,000. I mean,
Yeah.
and if it's got like a hook, if it's got something interesting, if you're doing something cool, I mean, you can throw it up online. I either dump it up on like Rumble or YouTube yourself, or get it up on Tubi. That's why I love it. I love Tubi. I mean, when Bayview told me that Death Metal was up on Tubi, I'm like, hooray! Awesome. I'm so pleased by that, because that's exactly where it belongs. And they also let me know that Death Metal has gotten picked up to be on Screenbox, and they will. Yeah, I know, which is which is exactly where Death Metal belongs, because Screenbox is kind of like the where the crazy movies are, like the Terrifier 2s of the world.
Oh yes, I would totally agree with that. It needs to be on Screenbox.
Yeah, and we're submitting it to YouTube, for their AVOD program pretty soon. And again, like Shadows is like, it is a little classier joint, because we've got like movie stars in that one. So it's like, Keith David, Bruce Davison, Alan Howarth, Selena Anduze. We have like, grown-ups in that movie. so that one's
I love that we have grown-ups here.
yeah, but I mean, that is the thing that that I'm kind of proselytizing is, man, if you want to make horror movies, you can just jump up and do it, man. It's never been as within reach.
I encourage all of you to go see From the Shadows and watch Death Metal while you're at it. After that, be on the lookout for some upcoming projects like these.
I can't go into super duper detail because for one thing, I can't jinx these projects, and for another, like, they're not like 100% together enough that I can be like, oh, this is gonna be our next movie. But I did yesterday type the end on the first draft of the next movie that I think I'm going to be directing. And I have another project on which I'm quote unquote just a writer. And that one is kind of like a bigger, like kind of spy thriller kind of thing. So I have two producers who are on that one, and they're actively, working to pull together the financing on that. And, that one is kind of, the idea is like kind of a 90s, like kind of Canal Plus style, the kind of movie that like Jean-Claude Van Damme used to be in like 1985, kind of a thing. And that one is, not a massive budget, but it is like another weight class up from where I've been with Death Metal and Shadows. So, the thing that I just wrote, that I think that one's going to be like another like kind of crowdsourcey, like stripped down, super budget conscious, kind of a production. And but on the other side, I've got my kind of bigger spy movie. So we'll see if that, if those are the two that kind of come together. But in the meanwhile, I'm actively hustling to pull up some music video work. So if you're in metal bands and you're in the LA community, in the LA area, I literally made the movie Death Metal. I will come out and make your Death Metal music video.
With that said, I'd like to give a special thank you to Mike from Blast Furnace Media. If you have the chance, go check out his work and give him a follow on social media. Or, have him produce your music video.